Hello and welcome to Good Clean Gaming. I'm your host Jalindo. In this tutorial video for Planetbase, I will be covering intermediate and advanced topics in the game. If you're not familiar with the game at all, then you may want to watch my Let's Play series where I talk slower, or play the tutorial level in the game. In the second half of the video, I will be providing intermediate and advanced tips for expanding deeper into the game. But in the first half, I'll be showing you how to build an effective, sustainable early game base. This section is separated into building phases. Unless otherwise specified, all buildings are of the smallest available size. And here we go with phase 1. First things first, scout around, see what's around, see where you want to build, and then you're going to want to recycle your colony ship to get more stuff, and then put an oxygen generator as close as possible to the resource pile, then put a solar panel directly across the resource pile. That's going to be your external is going to be on one side, your internal buildings are going to be on the other side. Then build a power collector, connect it to the solar panel, and then build a water extractor and attach that. This is why you need to play the tutorial or watch my Let's Play series before attempting this. Once the oxygen generator is complete, you want to immediately build a processing plant that requires an oxygen generator. Build that directly towards a mountain. You got to build a line towards a mountain so that you can then build an airlock towards the mountain, and then that airlock will feed directly into a mine. Why do I build a processing plant here? Well, processing plant, it makes metal, mine produces ore, which turns into metal, and metal is one of your really early game bottlenecks. So you want to maximize your early game metal. You're going to want to build the processor plant, airlock, mine in a straight line and as close as possible as you can. So yeah, that is basically phase 1. Phase 2, as soon as you see any of the colonists idle like you see there, you're going to want to build a dorm and a canteen. Ignore what I'm doing here because I built that on the wrong place. I had to redo different base designs over and over and over again to get the most efficient one, and this is the best I've been able to come up with so far. We're going to build a canteen. We're going to attach it to the oxygen generator on the top, and we're also going to build a dorm. And I'm going to put the dorm in the wrong place too. You want to separate your canteen and your dorm because they are high traffic areas. They use a lot of oxygen. And so you don't want them attached to each other. You want them attached to an oxygen generator and separate. You also want them away from any high foot traffic areas so that more people aren't passing through the canteen. You don't want anyone really passing through the canteen since it's not a dead end. People can actually do that. Now, after you get done building all this, you're probably, I already placed the storage there, but it's not going to stay. I'm going to end up recycling that because I don't want people getting distracted. But you're going to want to build the largest possible wind turbine and add that to your power area shortly here. I haven't done it yet. Right about there it goes. Okay. Build that largest possible wind turbine. If you don't do this right now, if you don't build that wind turbine right now, then you're going to run out of power in the middle of the night on the first night. If you do this, you won't, as long as you're fast enough. As soon as that canteen is connected, you're going to want to throw in a fountain, a large table, a food maker, and a television. You won't need the food. You won't need the television until a little bit later when morale gets down. But just go ahead and throw it in there because otherwise you'll forget, and everyone will have a grumpy face on, and everyone will stop working, and then everyone will die. If you don't put in the food maker, then you'll forget, won't make meals, and everyone will get hungry, and everyone will die. If you don't put in the water, everyone will get thirsty, and then everyone will die. You get a kind of a trend here that basically this game is trying to anticipate what's going to cause everyone to die in about 5 minutes. It's kind of like defusing a bomb, really. So next we're going to toss in the mine. I think we're going to toss that in right now. This is phase 3 we're at right now. Just started phase 3 with the mine and the landing pad. So those two are going to get built, and then we're going to attach a storage to the processing plant right about here. And then we're going to attach a biodome to the storage. And it's going to be the largest possible biodome, largest possible. You want the 7 metal, 7 bioplastic biodome because you're going to want a lot of space for plants. Food is another early game gotcha because if you build the smallest biodome, you're not going to have, it's going to cost about half as much, including the corridor, if you count the corridor in the cost. And it's going to cost about half as much, and you're only going to get like 1/4 of the throughput of a large biodome. So I don't see any reason to build a small biodome. Always build the largest if you have a choice. What next here? I think we're going to add a metal processor here. Always build at least one metal processor. Don't build all this other stuff that I'm doing here because you don't really need all that this early in the game. We'll add more later. I don't even need that bioplastic thing. I'll get rid of it too. The metal processor though, that's the one you want to have at least one, because if you don't, and then you end up losing all your metal or using all your metal on buildings and corridors and things, and then you go to build your metal processor, suddenly you can't. And suddenly you can't convert everything into metal, and you're going to have to start recycling stuff to get metal, and then you eventually run out of resources and everyone dies. That's basically the theme of the game. So metal processors built. Resist the urge to build every corridor possible and connect all these rooms. Don't do it, because each corridor costs power. It takes power just to stand there as a corridor. It takes metal and it takes bioplastic. And we can't spare any of those resources yet. You'll want to do it later to limit the amount of walking that people have to do, but you don't want to do it now because you will run out of metal, you will want to run out of plastic, and you will want to run out of power, and then everyone will die. So you don't want that to happen. So phase 4, pretty much entering phase 4, everything gets a little more stable. You want to, once the landing pad gets finished, you want to move everything over to 100% workers and get a bunch of workers and get a bunch of metal and ore and things like that. That's what you're really focused on, because metal is the very first bottleneck the game throws at you. So you want as many workers as possible and as many processors as possible. When I say as many as possible, 7 or 8 workers. No more than 7 or 8 workers, and then you're going to be switching over to biologists so everyone doesn't starve to death and die. So yeah. So as soon as the biodome is finished, it's not finished yet, but as soon as that gets finished, we're going to be putting plants in there. When traders arrive, I pretty much don't care unless they have technology or unless I really, really desperately need something. Otherwise, I just ignore the traders and dismiss them immediately. Once the biodome is completed, you'll want to throw in at least 1 starch and several red plants. I put too few in this video here, but you'll probably want to have, since you have 2 biologists, each biologist can handle about 3 plants effectively. So if you use the normal generation plants, you can add 6 plants. So I'd recommend like 4 red and then 2 starch, and then you'll have 6 plants. Only use the normal maintenance though. The high maintenance ones aren't really worth it because their maintenance goes down too fast, whereas the low maintenance ones don't produce enough food fast enough. And so the normal gives the best optimal value for time spent by your colonists. As workers arrive, prioritize based on your needs. If you have too much ore or too much or starch, prioritize the processing plant to get those processed into bioplastic and metal. On the other hand, if you have too little ore, then you might want to prioritize mines. If you have too much ore, too little metal, you want to prioritize metal processing. Feel free to shut down the bioplastic processors if you have too much bioplastic, not enough metal, and plenty of ore. That'll help keep your workers focused on what you actually need. Or you can always recycle the processors. It's free to recycle anything inside the buildings, any furniture, anything, any equipment, anything inside buildings you can recycle for free. It's the buildings that cost resources to recycle. What I mean is that you get back 100% of any furniture resources that you spend. You get it back 100% when you recycle it, but when you recycle a building, you'll lose 1 to 2 metal and 1 to 2 bioplastic for everything you recycle, and that's because you don't get refunded on the corridors, and you usually lose 1 metal and 1 plastic on interior buildings, 1 metal on exterior buildings. What else? So check on the plants at some point, make sure they're all staying in basically the excellent zone. If they're getting down into the good, and especially if they're getting down into the decent, if a lot of them are getting down into the decent, you don't have enough biologists. So don't overbuild your plants or you'll suffer on food production. You want all your plants at least in good, ideally all the way in excellent all the time, and they're producing as fast as possible if you do that. So as soon as you're going to want to build up to 7 or 8 workers. Once you do that, we're gonna split over to 100% biologists when that happens, and we're gonna add some more processors for the workers to use. But that hasn't happened yet, so let's fast forward until it does. So each time the colonist ship lands, it's going to drop off 1 or 2 of whatever you need the most of on your landing restrictions. So make sure you set those landing restrictions 100% workers, and then we're going to split it over to 100% biologists as soon as we have 7 to 8 workers. Just a little reminder, it's really important. Otherwise, you're going to get the wrong colonists and things won't go well. Always check your power generators and your power supply and your water tanks once you build a water tank. Make sure everything stays mostly full most of the time, and you should be good to go. Here I am realizing that I didn't put enough plants in and that I have plenty of bandwidth from my biologist to add plants. I'm going to add too many here. I added too few earlier. I'm going to add too many. So remember, you can add about 8, probably 6 to 8. When you first have 2, you can handle 6. You can probably handle 8. It's stretching it though. Don't add more than 8 until you add a water tank though, because if you add more than 8 or 9, it's going to strap out your water extractor, and without a water tank, you're at some point going to run out of water, and it's going to be bad, and you'll have to recycle plants and things like that. So remember, once you hit about 8 or 9 plants, build a water tank, and then you'll be fine. But don't overbuild, because then your plants will get under-maintained. I'm going to overbuild here, but I'll correct it later. Here I'm going to add some metal processors and a bioplastic processor. Here's another colony ship. Lets out 2 workers, and that should put us at 7 workers, I think. Question is when I'm going to realize it on the video. Right about now. Oh, yep, got 7 workers. Got to turn that over to biologists now. Now go to your landing permissions and change it 100% to biologists. And then you're going to want a ton of biologists to come in, because you're going to run out of food very quickly here if you don't have more biologists. But you've gotten through the metal bottleneck, which is going to make you progress through the game a lot faster, as long as you don't starve to death. Right about here, you're going to want to start looking to add a sick bay, because workers working in mines have a high chance of getting broken bones. And when they get broken bones, they stop working and they just eat a bunch of food and sleep, but they don't actually do any work to benefit the colony. So once someone gets a broken bone, you're going to want to have a sick bay made immediately, ready to go, and enough medical supplies with, you know, the medic to start treating people immediately. So yeah, set up the sick bay right about here before anyone gets injured. So we're basically in phase 5 here. Adding the sick bay basically puts us in phase 5. That's the sick bay, and then we're gonna shortly here we're gonna add another largest wind turbine to the power network, and we're gonna work our way up to 7 or 8 biologists. Unlike earlier in the game, if you are really efficient and build really fast, this part of the game actually is kind of slow. It's kind of relaxing. You can get to a stable state really quickly, and then if you're careful, you can just slowly move yourself forward through the game and handle anything the game throws at you, as long as you know what to expect. As long as you're planning ahead and things like that. It's that first kind of 2 or 3 phases that go really, really fast. And then after that, if you did everything right, it slows down and you can manage. So yeah, another colonist arrived. I'm going to check the biologists. We got 4 biologists. We need about 3 or 4 more. And now the plants I overbuilt are catching up to me. I'm going to recycle. Remember, recycling anything inside is free, because you get back 100% of what you put into it. And I recycled just enough to get out of the water issue. Now I'm actually going to look over here and build that water tank I was talking about. I should have built it earlier. I forgot, and now I'm making up for that. Here I'm also going to build that largest wind turbine I was talking about. This will correct any kind of power issues we're running into now that we're adding to our base more quickly. I'm also going to add a bed. Don't forget to add the bed to the sick bay. If you don't add at least one bed, anyone who's sick can't lay down, and then the medic can never treat them. So they have to lay down in the sick bay before the medic will do anything about it. You notice at the top right that my meals are getting low, but I have plenty of vegetables, and that's why we built. So that's like pretty much built so many plants, and we built a very large biodome, is because I wanted to make sure I had plenty of extra vegetables to keep everybody fed during this kind of interim period as we're growing. Even though the meals are getting low, all those vegetables are going to get put into the meal maker as they are needed, and no one's going to starve. So everything's going to be okay. Remember to flex your priorities on your buildings. So if you want more metal produced, prioritize the processors. If you want more ore produced for metal, prioritize the mine. Here I've got both prioritized just because I want to make sure they're not just running around hauling. But I'm not sure if that actually stops them from hauling or not. But better be safe than sorry, I guess. But later on in the game, you'll see me prioritize probably one or the other, whichever one I want them to focus on first. At this point, it's probably good to add some medicinal plants to the biodome. By doing so, you're going to make sure that you have enough plants to handle the medical supplies needed. I probably added too many there, and hopefully I'll end up correcting that in the video. But the sandstorm is here. There's disasters on this planet, one of which is the sandstorm. There's also a solar flare. This is the accessible first planet, and I've noticed from playing enough that you get, usually it's every time I've played so far, you get 2 sandstorms and then you get a solar flare. The 2 sandstorms just make you run slower when you're outside. They wear out the bots a little faster. You want to keep your guys inside during the sandstorm, but it's not really that devastating. It's just kind of annoying. Whereas the third disaster that happens on this planet is going to be a solar flare. Anyone outside is going to get irradiated by the solar flare. The solar flare lasts about 30 seconds and then it stops. And as soon as the solar flare is done, if they are still irradiated, they will die. If you have a lot of people outside, in order to get unirradiated, they have to come in, lay down in the sick bay, and get a medic to treat them. Here I'm changing the landing permissions to 90%, excuse me, 5% engineer, 5% medic, and I'm splitting the remaining 90% between worker and biologist, whatever I feel like I want to favor more between those two. 0% guard currently. Looks like I'm going to go 40% worker and 50% biologist, and that's just going to let them kind of increase kind of steadily together. Make sure we have enough food, at the same time make sure we're getting enough resources. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Irradiated colonists will need to lay down in the sick bay. They're going to use tons of medical supplies to get healed. It's going to be very expensive, and a lot of them are probably not going to treat it in time, and they will die. So solar flares are devastating, and you're going to have to use a security console and a command center building to turn on yellow alert and get everyone inside and prevent them from dying. So before that solar flare, we're going to make sure we have a command center built and manned with a security console and a guard, so we can do the yellow alert and get everyone inside before that solar flare hits. Back to the landing permissions. What were we talking about landing permissions? We're splitting them kind of 40-50, but 40%, 50%, and then 5 each on medic and engineer, because we want to make sure we have at least 1, preferably 2 medics, and 1, preferably 2 engineers now at this point. And we're also going to get more biologists and workers primarily. And the reason being is because the only colonists in the game that actually produce raw resources that are useful to you are the worker and the biologist. The biologist gives you food, which you need to survive, or else you'll all die. and the medic, not the medic, the worker gives ore and processes starch into bioplastic and processes ore into metal, and that's the only way you can get building materials. So they're your food and your building materials. They're essential. You want to get as many of them as you can early in the game, and then you want to branch off into less vital characters like the engineer, the medic, and lastly the guard. You're going to want the fewest guards of any class that I've seen so far. So here I'm prepping a lab right next to the biodome, and I've overbuilt on corridors and also preemptively built another building, but we're just going to focus on the lab right now. The lab is going to let you build tissue synthesizers as well as a medical workbench, which will allow you to build medical supplies with your medic. And the tissue synthesizers are worked by the biologists, and they will create meat, or fake meat, synthesized meat. And the reason why you're building those, they seem redundant. We have plenty of food, right? Why are we building tissue synthesizers? Well, if you just eat vegetable-based meals, you will eventually all your colonists will get malnourished from only eating vegetables, and they will die, and everyone will die. Once you start getting everyone malnourished, everyone will die. Noticing a pattern in this game? So tissue synthesizers, and when they get built, you can build cow, or you can build pork, pig, or you can build chicken. And you want to have one on each. So I built 3 of them. There'll be one on each. One will be chicken, one will be cow, one will be pork, pig, and that'll prevent your colonists from getting malnourished. Now here I'll probably look and fiddle around with the numbers, maybe some, I don't know. Looks like I'm going to leave them mostly the same, but I'm preferring workers right now because I'm low on ore and processing of ore into stuff. And it's going to be a little while to get those tissue synthesizers because I'm completely out of bioplastic. That's another reason why I wanted more workers. So the medical supply bench is going to allow the medic to actually do something. So you're going to want to have one. The only thing the medic can do other than treat people is work at the medical supply workbench that I built there. So you want to have one workbench per medic. Otherwise, there's times where they're going to be idle and they're not going to be doing anything. So you definitely want to do that. So we got tissue synthesizers taken care of, and you want to definitely set each one to different animals. When possible, next as soon as possible, we're gonna build a factory to start producing spares for the power network. What spares do is that as time goes on, the generators, the power generators, the water generators, all those things, all those external buildings are going to start wearing themselves out from generating power over time. Without spares, they will eventually stop functioning altogether, and they will stop producing power, they will stop producing water, they will stop storing they will just stop doing anything. And you'll want to have them lots of spares available so that they will never break down. So that's what that's the first and foremost purpose of the factory. And you'll want to make sure you have that covered. We're checking out the water tank here. Water tank's going down. You can hear that ticking sound in the background. That means I don't have enough water extraction. If you hear ticking from the water tank, it's probably best to go ahead and just make another water extractor. You could probably get by because water extraction fluctuates. But if it's ticking, chances are eventually you're going to run out of water. So you might as well go ahead and build one and prepare for the future. So another thing you want to do is check your population. When you get close to 20 or you get at 20, you want to start building an oxygen generator. I'm going to build that late in this video, and it can be dangerous if you don't have the supplies for an oxygen generator and you get too many people. Everyone can asphyxiate and die. So make sure to check your population frequently. Here I've noticed that oxygen consumption is above, is being overused. We can generate 20 and we have 21 people, so I'm adding in the largest possible oxygen generator. That will add 30 more oxygen population worth of 30 more population worth of oxygen. That is hard to say. So now we can have up to 50 people in our base, and 50 is a good number. If you can stabilize your base and get it stable at about 50 population and then stop, you can build a couple bots, you can get a couple technologies, you can build up your resources, and then it makes advancing a lot easier, because at 50, if you're stable and you have all these resources available, you can then decide, okay, now you can turn off your colonist ships. You can actually turn them off and tell them no more colonists for a while. And then when you're ready to grow, when you feel comfortable and you have enough resources and everything's ready to go, you can say, okay, turn on the switch, and you start inviting colonists again to your base, and everything's stable, and you can build whatever you need to support them. So 50 is a really good number to stop at and wait, but we're not anywhere close yet. You also notice here that I've added above the oxygen generator on the left. You notice I also added a factory up there, it looks like. At least that's what I believe I added. That's, like I mentioned, spares. It's going to be making spares using whatever engineers we have available. At first, we're not going to have enough engineers to really do much with it, but it's good to just go ahead and prep it up. We're going to start recruiting more engineers. Generally in the game, as you start with a lot of workers and not a lot of bots, because you just don't have the resources to make a lot of bots. But as you get more engineers, you're going to start reducing your number of workers, overall percentage of the base. You're going to stop, at some point, you're probably going to stop getting any new workers at all, because you're going to start replacing at least half of them, maybe more, with bots. Drill bots are awesome for getting more out of the mine and staying out there longer, not getting injured, working harder at it. And haul bots take the place of workers hauling things around, and so the hauling bots will do a lot of that work, and then you end up with a lot of spare workers if you keep recruiting them. So you're going to reduce the number of workers at some point, and as your engineers go up, your workers are going to go down, and that's kind of going to be supply and demand for this game. Here we're adding the spares to the factory, the spare generating things. You probably only need one, maybe two at most, because you only have one or two engineers at this point of the game anyway. I usually add two because the other two slots I'll use one each for the other two things that the factory can do. Here I'm adding an additional table and an additional fountain just to make sure everyone who needs to can actually sit down and drink and eat. If they want to do something like eat, but they can't because there's not enough places to sit, or there's not enough food, or they want to drink but there's not water, then they'll just do nothing until someone else gets up and leaves, and then they'll go in and do their thing. So it's always important to have two. It's better to have too many spots than too few. If you have too few, you're going to kill your productivity. But if you have too many, all you're doing is wasting a couple of resources. It's fine. I also added a couple more bunks. If you look at your dorm and all the beds are full, that is a perfect indicator that you need more bunks. If you have added bunk beds all the way around the dorm and you can't fit any more bunk beds and they're all full, then that's a good indicator that you need another dorm. And you want to add another dorm and then add some bunk beds to that. So really, this game, one thing that really helps, once you get it stable, one thing that really helps is to look at seats and look at beds and look at things and see what is full. If something is full, that means you need more of them, period. That's a great rule of thumb. If all of your plants are excellent, you can have more plants, or you can have less biologists. If all of your seats are full in your canteen, build another canteen or build more seats in the canteen. If all your beds are full and your bunk beds are full, build another dorm or build more beds. And that will kind of just stay ahead of that. If you get behind it, you kind of fall asleep on it, you fall behind. Eventually, everyone will get some kind of orange indicator over their head, and everyone will die. I just built an airlock over to the side of the oxygen generator because you can see how wide the base is getting. I don't want people having to go all the way out the airlock on the right and then walk all the way out around to the other side of the base on the left. It's just too much walking, too much wasted time. So I'd rather have an airlock on each side of the base at the very least, and maybe one on the top at some point. I also added a control center over to the left of the factory. I believe that's a control center. We're going to have one guard be in there with a security console, and he's going to enable us to use security alerts for handling disasters and intruders. Here I'm going to add another mine because we have a bottleneck of ore again. We're not generating enough ore, and so because of that, we want to add another mine, get more workers into those mines, and then they can take care of that. We're going to add 5% onto guard there, so we're going to end up with 1 guard, and that's going to be perfect because he's going to man the security console. And we're going to have 50% workers and 35% biologists because you can see we have a surplus of food at the top right. I've found that 35% biologists in a base is a really good number because if you have 35% of your population as food production, you pretty much never run out of food and everyone doesn't die. So it's really good. It's great when everyone doesn't die. Let me just tell you that. And then second to that, you want to have enough workers to generate resources until you get enough bots to help you with that. And then you can reduce the number of workers, increase the number of engineers, and bing, bang, boom, everything's great. Here you'll notice I have 2 engineers, 2 medics, 14 and 10 of biologists and workers, so everything's kind of where it needs to be. I have 2 medics because, you know, we have 2 workbenches now. You want to have 1 medic per workbench, and they're going to be making enough, going through enough medical supplies to make sure we don't run out, and also treating any workers that get injured in the mine so we stay fully productive on that. And then the workers are going to be generating lots of ore and making lots of bioplastic and steel, so we're not going to have that bottleneck either. And then we also have 2 engineers. Those 2 engineers will start getting to work at some point on the, right now they're probably going to help build and things like that, but at some point they're going to activate those factories and going to start getting us some spares. We're probably going to run pretty low on spares, if not run out at this point, but we're going to be able to recover from that as long as we get a couple engineers and have enough raw materials to build those spares, so we'll be fine. Looks like somebody's actually suffering from malnutrition. That will happen from time to time. They went and laid down in the sick bay just now. It'll just happen, and a medic will go and treat them. You can't really control if someone's eating too many vegetables or eating too much of a certain meat product. You can just all you can do is reduce the probability of it happening, because we're making meals using both meat and vegetables, and if they just happen to eat tons of vegetables, you can't really stop them. Just all you can do is treat them. So the spares workshop takes both metal and bioplastic, so we got to wait for an engineer to find enough. Right now we got a lot sitting on the little spots for buildings on the solar panel and up there at the control center and the corridor. But once all the buildings stop, we should be able to push more of that material towards the factories, which will allow us to build the spares we need to keep our power generation running. Once your factory is set up, you'll probably want to add a robotics facility. Once everything's like stable and you have plenty of extra resources, we're talking like 10 plus resources. Once you get to that point, you're probably in a good shape to start building that robotics facility, and then you're going to be able to start building bots. At first, you'll only be able to get the hauler bot, which is the one that lifts and carries things around. You want to get like 5 to 7 to 10 of those, depending on your base size, and even more if you get a really big base. And then now we can do now we got the security console. We can actually do yellow alert and red alert. But you can get other technologies from traders. Traders, when they land, if they have a light blue thing, it's really rare. It's kind of rare anyway. But if they have the light blue little button, they'll have one of them at most, I think. If they have that, it's going to cost like 600 value, which is 600 coins, or like, you know, I'm trying to do the math here. 20 to 120 food, or 120 starch. It's really expensive is basically what I'm getting at. If you can get it nice, but don't trade a bunch of material for it, because you're going to want to trade more like spares or higher value products once you have a lot of them. Because if you trade with a trader and You send out your people to put 50 of something on the ship. Once you do the trade, everyone in the entire base stops what they're doing and starts going out and delivering all those goods. And so when they deliver 50 of that and get stuck in the airlock and all that stuff, they're going to be tired, they're going to be hungry, all the plants are going to be dead, everything's going to be horrible, and you may spiral into death in the base, and everyone will die. So don't trade more than like 20 of something at a time unless you really want to die, or unless you have a whole lot of people. And so you want to trade higher value products, so you send less people out those airlocks, because they really can be a problem. And also use coins. Once you get a starbase, a spaceport, you'll be able to use coins, and you'll be able to use that as currency, which will make trading a lot easier. You noticed while I was doing that, while I was talking, I set up the manufacturing limits. You want to only have about 10 spares, 10 semiconductors, and 5 guns for most of the game until you get really big. And then you want to have basically unlimited medical supplies and unlimited bots. The reason being that medical supplies are slow to make. You want to make as many of them as you can. You don't want your medics to stop for any reason producing those. And you want bots more than anything else in the world, and so there's no reason to not make tons of those. So as a summary, the base should be fairly stable now. Just monitor all your resources carefully. If you notice yourself getting low on something, add it. For instance, if you see a lot of sleepy colonists with Z's on their heads, add more bunks to your dorm or add another dorm. If you're low on food, add tissue synthesizers, plants, and biologists. If you're low on ore, add a mine and workers as necessary. If you are low on metal, add metal processors and more workers as necessary. As a general rule of thumb, you want at least 1 worker per workstation. Some exceptions include a mine counts as 3 workstations because 3 workers can be in there at once. A biologist can handle 3 plants on their own, so they're 1/3 of a workstation each. And then slowly work your way to the oxygen limit. When you get close to the limit, stop allowing colonists in, stabilize the base to that point, build up a lot of resources, and then build another oxygen generator and start letting colonists back in after that. That'll let you control the flow of the game, and that's really important in this game, is controlling the flow. Like I said, build as many bots as possible. They need neither food nor sleep, so they are awesome. They are more efficient than your colonists as builders, miners, and haulers, so definitely build as many of them as possible. If you find your base failing for any reason, you'll probably want to stabilize the base and save and build a lot of bots, build a lot of resources, and then try again from that point forward. If you run out of water, so yeah, let's continue this in the next section. I'm starting to give a lot of tips, so I'm going to continue in the next section. So this has been the section about ideal build, and then I'm going to continue into the next section. We're going to show you a more advanced base that hopefully will show you a little bit about what the later game is like. Okay, so here's a base a little deeper in the game, something that you can kind of contemplate what I've done here. It's not a perfect base. There's a little bit of messiness to it, but you'll find that you're going to have that happen as you build organically. You're going to have a little bit of things just kind of sprawling out, and things are going to happen that you're just going to have to react to. It's not going to be a perfect base unless you really torture yourself to do it. It's just too much going on at once to make a perfect base. So I got my exterior stuff back here. I've got the wind turbines, the solar panels, the batteries, the water tanks, the water extractors, and all that stuff kind of spread out. I don't like to stack them all together, because pretend like all the batteries were on one line and then a meteor hits it, all of a sudden you've lost all your batteries simultaneously. So by making everything mixed in together, I've basically made a somewhat redundant foolproof system that is very difficult to mess up. The only weakness is right down here. I only have one little connector to my entire power structure, and that's something that you really should avoid doing. I just did it because I'm silly. I'm weird. I'm not right in the head. But that if a meteor hit that, it would just be curtains for the entire base. It would be horrible. But hopefully the game doesn't hate me today. So if you look around, we got the engineers areas down here. Got your factory and your robotics. Got your worker area with the mines over here. The workers are all inside because I've got drill bots manning these mines, and I've got 6 drill bots, and they're in charge of the mines. The workers stay in these processors, and usually don't go out to the mines because I've got the processors prioritized higher than the mines. I've got a canteen here. I did something wrong here, and this is where I came up with that rule of thumb where you don't want to have high traffic canteens because workers traffic through here. Your biologists will traffic through here. People traffic the entire base traffics through here to go to this dorm and sleep. So this is going to eat up a lot of this oxygen, which is also going to eat up the oxygen in here. And eventually we're going to run out of oxygen in these two locations. So this is the worst way to build a canteen and dorm. Avoid doing this specifically. It's a great thing to avoid. Build something more like this. This is a bar. But if it's a canteen, it's out of the way. It's a low traffic area. Or this one over here is a canteen, a low traffic area. If I were to get rid of this canteen over here, you better believe everyone would be going over here and using this canteen, and they wouldn't be running out of oxygen. Although I probably would throw an oxygen generator off of it just because canteens are so high oxygen use. At the top here, I got the recreational areas for tourists, visitors. We got the bar and the multi-dome attached to an oxygen generator all its own. That way, none of this, if I get a lot of visitors all at once or people start using this a lot, then this won't be a problem. But usually the bar and the multi-dome are a lot less utilized than the canteen and the dorm. So those are these two down here are priorities for oxygen generator being attached to them. I've got my star landing pad and a spaceport out here, or starport out here. This is where the big ships come in. Once you build a starport, visitors can come in on the landing pad as well as the starport. But without a starport, you won't get any visitors in your landing pad. I've got some empty areas flowing into the base because visitors that come in can sometimes be intruders with guns and will start shooting all the colonists. So you want to make sure that you have a little bit of empty area so that they come in, they get detected on the security cameras, the guards rush into these empty areas, and all the colonists get protected because the guards will take out the intruders. Over here on the right, I did turn off this storage area because it turned out not to need it. It's not a good idea to build two. I found out to build two storage areas next to each other because one gets used and the other gets empty until this first one gets full, and that's just not a good way to do business. It's better to have them separated like here and here, like I have these two, because then relevant materials nearby go into each, and you have less walking time. This one up here is a waste, but the problem is it's hard to get rid of this. It would be difficult for me to get rid of this because my entire base connects through this one storage area, and this endpoint here with the dorm just ruins this situation. So I'd probably have to move the dorm, then move the storage area by reattaching this together, then move that storage area, move the airlock over here. It's a whole ordeal. So I just turned it off and said I'm not going to deal with that right now. I also turned off this factory because I have moved the factory. That used to be my old factory. I moved the new factory over here and made it a large one. Generally speaking, large buildings, in fact, completely speaking, in every way speaking, large buildings are more efficient and better than smaller buildings because they use the same number of corridors, whether they're large or small. And corridors all use power, and they all cost material. So you don't want to build corridors unless you have to. You won't get refunded for the last corridor when you're demolishing a building. And so it's best for you just not to... words. Where did all the words go? All the words exited my head. Anyway, just complete my sentence there. I'm not sure where I was going with that. But, oh yeah, large buildings. Always better to build large buildings because they are more efficient per material and per power use. They just definitely are. And then we have the med bay, the sick bay over here. Enough beds so that everyone can lay down. And I can see how many injured there are. If there are more than like one or two, I definitely want to have more medics or more medical supplies. You see I'm up to 94. In one save, I have this up. I think I got the wrong save here. I got one save up to like 106. And then I stopped and said, okay, this is good to show off, and then start my Let's Play series. Here is the extra large, the massive biodome that I invested in research to build this, and it is just ginormous. It adds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plots. So it's basically 50% bigger than the largest biodome available. And also, it's a good time to talk about specialized buildings. See, I've got this is a lab here. a medium-sized lab, and then there's the lab over here, also medium-sized. However, this one only has medic workbenches, and this one only has tissue synthesizers. And the reason being is, if I need meat, if I go over to my resource screen, you see what resources I have. If I need more meat, I can prioritize the tissue synthesizers without prioritizing the workbenches. And I can, if I need more of this, I can prioritize workbenches. Although there's no reason not to prioritize workbenches. You should always leave them prioritized. I can prioritize those without prioritizing the tissue synthesizers. So point being is separating, making specialized rooms means that you can have more control over your resources, your resource generation, and all that stuff. Here's another one over here. This also highlights the lab as an endpoint, because you know we got the dorm, which you can only have one connector over here, and we have the airlock can only have one connector, and the sick bay can only have one collector. But the lab's kind of an oddball. Anything the way the building works is anything on the wall will not be on the wall if there's a corridor. So you see up here, I can't build as many ovens, as many tissue synthesizers up here, because I have 2 corridors. So it's kind of best practice, in my opinion, to treat, even though lab isn't an endpoint, or whatever they call it in this game, the lab isn't a, whatever that T symbol is, it's a dead end. It's not, okay, so the lab's not a dead end, but it should be treated as one, if possible. Because if you don't, then you're just losing these ovens, or losing the workbenches, and you're not gaining anything. You're losing, using more power, more materials, and you're actually having a less efficient building. So just treat buildings as if they are dead ends. It looks like I'm starting to run out of oxygen up here, and that's going to be a problem unless I fix it. Won't be fixing it on this video, though. I do have a save, so I don't have to worry about it. Ha ha ha. What other things do I want to go over? If you see a lot of yellow symbols, or especially if you see orange symbols, that tells you what you need to fix in your base. So if you have a lot of frowny faces, for instance, you know you need more morale based things. And if you do it when a lot of them are yellow, if you fix it before too many get yellow, then you can get ahead of it. And if you don't, then they'll start turning orange, and then everyone will stop working and everyone will die. So yeah, here you notice almost all my dorm rooms are my bunk beds in the dorm are full, and so I really should build another dorm. This is an indicator that I need another dorm. So just stay ahead of those. Count the number of seats that are empty, and and see if everything's full. If everything's full, all the seats are full at a canteen, all the beds are full at a dorm, build another one. Build more. Don't just say, oh, it's full, it's being efficient. Say it's full, that's a problem, and then build another one. You can have a starch-only biodome, for instance. And if you want to have starch-only biodome and then a red-only biodome, like I have here, and sort of here, but not really, then you can basically specialize. If you need more food, you specialize this one, or prioritize this one. And then if you need more starch, you prioritize the starch-based one. And then you can kind of control the flow of your resources. Really important to do things like that once you get big enough. If you hear a clicking sound like you're hearing in the background, that means you probably need another water tank or another water collector, or water extractor they call it. If you hear a humming sound, you'll probably hear humming at night, and it'll be these power collectors. You definitely want to have enough wind turbines and solar panels that they're not clicking, or they're not humming so much and running out of fuel. You want to have at least 20% of your power available at sunrise, because night time's where you have the least amount of power generation because there's no sun, so the solar panels stop working. So you want to have about 20% remaining on your power when the sun rises, and preferably more. So it's better to have more than less in this game, because otherwise if you have less, or if you have just enough, it's going to catch you off guard and everyone will die. And then we have, let's see, use the landing restrictions to flex your resources. If you need more ore or something like that, make more workers or bring in more workers. If you need more food, bring in more biologists, and just kind of work. You have to work the base like it's clay and you're making a pot. Why did I go with that analogy? That's so weird. Workbenches. So we have workbenches for medics. Those are these right here. You want to have one workbench for each medic. You want to have 3 plants per biologist. You want to have 1 mine for every 3 workers, or for every 3 miner bots, drill bots, or any combination thereof, and 1 processing machine per worker. So yeah, as far as disasters, sandstorms hurt, but they're just really annoying. That's really all they do is annoy you and slow you down. Solar flares can kill. So solar flare. So during a solar flare, you want to hit the yellow alert button, which is right up here, and then in the security controls, and hit that yellow alert button, and then everything will kind of handle a little better. The medics and the guards will stay on duty longer, and all colonists will stay indoors, and then no one will get irradiated and die. If everyone does get irradiated, then they're probably dead. But if your medics can get to them in time, they can unirradiate them. We got a little malnourishment going on over here. The medics are coming to treat those guys. Red alert is for intruders. As you start inviting these visitor ships in, every now and then, every like 10 minutes, 10 minutes, you'll get intruders who will come in and start shooting up the place. You want to have your guards able to respond, and hitting the red alert button will help the situation usually, and the intruders will go down pretty quickly. Next, we need one way you can tell you've got an intruder is if a visitor comes. If a visitor comes from one of these ships, then they're going to want something from your station, like they're going to want to drink or eat or sleep or something like that. However, if an intruder will look just like a visitor, and he'll be incognito until the guards detect him. But if you notice a visitor coming in and he's perfectly happy and healthy and all of his meters are all the way to the top, that is an intruder. You know just from the fact that all of his meters and all of his needs are being met, that he's not there to rest or to drink beer or to eat food or to rest, or already said rest, or to do anything else. You know he's there with a blaster to take you out. So as soon as you see that, you can go ahead and hit red alert right there, and you'll be totally ready for him. And so again, last but not least, if by the way, second to last but not least, if you get an anti-meteor laser and a telescope, it will start shooting down, boom, 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 shooting down those meteors, and then you'll have less of a problem with meteors possibly hitting your base. So it's really, really nice to have that. So kind of last thing, looks like a meteor hit there, and it wasn't able to shoot it down in time. Probably better to have 2 of these because it takes time to charge up again. So the very last thing, kind of the key to this game, save often. And when you get a lot of resources, save. If you hit the oxygen limit and your base feels really stable and you're not having to worry about too much, save. If everything seems like it's going well, save. Because inadvertently, something's going to happen, everything's going to blow up, everyone's going to die, and you're going to be like, man, I wish I would have saved. And then if you did save, then you can go back and say, oh, I know what I did wrong. I'm going to try this now, and I'm going to try that now. And it's going to make you a better player without having to play through a lot of the game over again. So definitely save often. And if you die and all your people die, don't just give up. Don't just throw up your hands and say, oh, well, I'll start a new base, and I'll do it right this time. Give it a couple tries. Reload an old save and see what you missed. Rebuild something. Try something different. And if you just can't get it to work, then start a new base. But do your best to try, and see where you went wrong, and then fix it. So that's pretty much all the tips I have right now. I'm sure I missed something. I'm not a perfect player. I'm just starting to learn this game as you are. I've practiced a lot, but I've got a lot more to learn, and I've got a lot deeper to get into the game. This is just the accessible, easy planet, which is still pretty hard for new players. But I'm going to be trying the challenging, and then the impossible, or hair-raising, or whatever that last level is called. I can't remember. I'll be trying all those, getting those down, and then hopefully providing, if I can, providing updated tutorials for you guys to watch and see how to pass through those harder levels. So hope you'll subscribe and hit that subscribe button so you can see those videos when they come out. Hope you'll follow my Let's Play series. You can see some of the things I learn. I'm guaranteed to learn things I didn't know when I recorded this tutorial. And if I missed anything, if you've learned something and you want to share it with us, share it with the commenters, the viewers, share it with me. I'm sure I can learn something from you. Go ahead and share that with me. I'll be glad to listen and accept feedback. So share that stuff with me. Do so, kind of try to do so constructively. Sometimes people will come through and be like, you noob, you totally missed this. How dare you? You ruined my life. And I'm like, really, really, you get that upset over a guy that's talking while playing video games and manages to miss something, which is guaranteed to happen. If any of you guys out there do Let's Plays and you have to talk and hold a conversation basically with yourself and play flawlessly, it just doesn't happen unless you play something so religiously that you can play it in your sleep. It just doesn't happen. So be thoughtful and considerate to your to the Let's Players out there. It is not as easy as it looks to talk while playing, and you're bound to miss something when you do so. So anyway, yeah, be considerate, and yeah, please give me any constructive criticism or constructive feedback. It probably is a better word. Criticism usually comes off the wrong way. And I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. Hit that subscribe button. Catch my future tutorials and catch my Let's Play series. Hope you enjoy those. And remember, keep it clean.